If you ignore this camera, you're making a mistake. The Fuji X-H2S is a very underrated camera. It has an APS-C sensor that looks just as good as a full-frame camera, with insane speed for photo burst mode and video frame rates. And it's almost as powerful as the Sony a7S III and the Canon R5, which cost a whole lot more. This is a camera you don't want to miss out on. Also, if you guys want to check out this camera or any of the gear we talk about today, I'll leave links in the description as always. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the APS-C sensor, and why most people ignore this camera, but they shouldn't. Most likely you've heard some annoying nerd on the internet say, "Ew, APS-C sensors? Pfft, I would never, I'm a professional." And quite possibly that annoying nerd was me, but I completely take it back. Generally, people want to shoot full frame because the larger sensor captures more light, thus more detail and color information, and the larger sensor also gives you a wider field of view and arguably a more cinematic looking video. But that's not the full story. While a larger sensor does look more cinematic at times, most sensors are actually not capturing light very efficiently and actually use an optical low-pass filter to further soften the image, thus reducing detail. So to make up for it, you have to go to a bigger sensor, which also costs almost twice the money. But that's not the case with the Fuji X-Trans sensor. The Fuji X-H2S uses a 26 megapixel back illuminated and stacked sensor with a very unique pixel structure that eliminates almost all loss of detail and color information, and it doesn't have an optical low pass filter to soften the image. And if we look at the photos and videos, you get these insanely sharp and crisp results and a ridiculous amount of color detail. I've had a red camera for about 4 years, and I have to say the Fuji X-H2S is the first prosumer mid-level camera that I've ever seen that is as sharp and detailed as my red. And it's pretty ridiculous how far you can push these photos, both in terms of color and exposure. So you get the same level of detail and color information that you would with a professional full-frame camera that also costs a ton more money. But as you'll see in this video, that sacrifice is very worth it. This sensor alone is a game changer, but it doesn't stop there, because it's also a stacked and back illuminated sensor, which allows for faster photos and video shooting speeds, but also the autofocus is much better. I would absolutely say it is on par with most Canon cameras. And the Fuji X-H2S is also crazy good in low light. But let's jump into the photos and videos because I want to show you what this camera can really do. And the first thing you'll notice when shooting with the Fuji camera are the colors. Wow. Fuji has built-in film emulations that are meant to look like vintage film, and it makes your colors look amazing right in camera. Fuji has 19 built-in film emulations that give you stunning colors and also set your contrast and tonal values so your photos already look edited. And all of this transfers over to video for F-Log and F-Log 2, which I'll talk about in a second. And the other thing that's going to impress photographers is the ridiculous shooting speed of 40 frames per second with autofocus. Now, I haven't needed to shoot anything that fast, but dear God, I feel powerful when using this camera. And you can continuously shoot 40 frames per second up to 200 shots. And the autofocus in photo mode is pretty great. I would say it's easily as good as most Canon cameras. Shooting at 40 frames per second, it won't really keep up with focus because that is a lot of frames. But I got perfect results using medium drive, which is about 20 frames per second. And that itself is pretty impressive and more than what most Canon cameras can do. And that's actually faster than the Canon R5 or the Canon R6. But video is where the real magic happens because the Fuji X-H2S is doing two things in combination that no other mirrorless camera on the planet is doing right now. These two features go beyond just specs, but in case you do want the specs, the Fuji X-H2S shoots 4K up to 24, 30, and 60 frames per second with no crop. You get a full sensor readout, and it does 4K up to 120 frames per second with a slight crop of 1.29, which really isn't that much. Like I mentioned earlier, the Fuji cameras have phenomenal colors with the film emulations built right in, and you can apply those same emulations from the photo side of things to the video side of things and they work perfectly fine. But if you're someone like me that really likes to push their color grade and create a unique cinematic look, it has Fuji Interna, which is a flat profile that I recommend most of you guys shoot in, But on top of that, it also has f-log1 and f-log2, and Fuji even provides the conversion LUTs to take it from f-log to Rec 709 on their website. But the crazy thing is, it shoots all of these video formats at 10-bit color 422, and the bit rates go as high as 720 megabits per second using a C fast card, which allows for easy color grading without any loss in image quality. But let's talk about the two features in this camera that absolutely blew me away. First, the Fuji X-H2S allows you to do ProRes internally using a C fast card. This is amazing because normally this is only a feature you find on professional cinema cameras that also cost a whole lot more. And you don't have to be a professional to want ProRes in your camera, and even if you're a casual content creator, because ProRes is an industry format that allows for high quality video without needing an expensive computer to edit it with, because 10-bit video at 4K usually slows your computer way down, but ProRes does all of the processing in camera, so your computer simply has to do less work. But there is one tiny catch. To record ProRes internally, you do need a CF card. Now, a CF fast card can range anywhere between $250 to $500 to even $750, depending on what size you get. However, that is still a lot cheaper than getting a professional computer to edit high-end video. And the second feature that absolutely blew me away is the fact that the Fuji also lets you shoot in not 4K, but 6.2K, but in 4:3 open gate mode. Basically, most videos have the black bars at the top and bottom, but Fuji allows you to get rid of those black bars and shoot slightly taller. This actually makes this camera better for social media because you're getting more real estate at the top and bottom of your video. But best of all, shooting in this mode actually lets you use anamorphic lenses for that cinematic Hollywood look. Now, anamorphic lenses are usually pretty expensive to rent or buy, but it's really nice being able to have this option for when you want to rent those more expensive lenses for bigger projects. This camera is a video shooter and cinematographer's dream. They basically give you everything you need, everything you want in a professional camera, but in a pretty affordable body. I'm primarily a video shooter, and my goal is to become a master of creating beautiful images, and this is the first camera that I would say is technically and visually on par with something like a Red Komodo or a Red Dragon. It doesn't have the same sensor size, but the quality is definitely there. So lastly, let's talk about the user experience and design, because the design is really unique with this camera. How it feels to actually use this camera on a day-to-day basis, along with the pros and cons, and how does this camera stack up to other cameras on the market like the Sony FX30, the Canon R7, and most importantly, other full-frame cameras like the Canon R6. Design-wise, the X-H2S is radically different than most Fuji cameras. It feels much closer to a DSLR in your hands, and it even has an LCD at the top, so you can quickly see all your settings at a glance. Plus, the grip is really thick and it feels really robust in your hands. Most mirrorless cameras like this tend to have a really flimsy grip, and the camera just feels small. And it also has 5-axis stabilization, which is one of the best that I've ever used. It's easily better than the Sony cameras. I love you, Sony, don't be mad at me. The one issue that I did have is that the ISO isn't mapped to a dial. Instead, you have to hit a button and then go through a few menus. And along with that, the menus can kind of be a little confusing. They're not as intuitive as I would like, and I definitely think Fuji is in need of an update to a more streamlined menu system. But a few things that I do really like is that the battery is as good as a DSLR. It easily lasted me 2, if even 3 hours of shooting on and off. And with photos, this will easily last you all week. And it does have a headphone jack and an audio jack for external audio. This really does feel like a proper production camera. So who's this camera really for? When it comes to APS-C cameras, the closest competitor to this camera is the Sony FX30 and the Canon R7. Now, both of those cameras are cheaper than this camera because they do not shoot ProRes internally. But if you're someone that maybe doesn't need ProRes internally, there's also the Fuji X-T5, which has a 40 megapixel APS-C sensor, but it's an X-Trans sensor, so you're going to get the same level of quality. But on top of that, you get all of the Fujifilm emulations in that camera as well. If the Fuji X2HS is a little too expensive, I do recommend the FX30 instead, because that is also a cinema camera, whereas the R7 is really just a photo DSLR with some pretty cool video qualities. The Canon R6 Mark I and Mark II are probably the closest in terms of video horsepower to the Fuji, and I have to say there's a lot of people where those cameras might actually be a better fit. They both do 4K at 60 without a crop. However, the R6 Mark II has a 24 megapixel sensor and the R6 has a 20 megapixel sensor, and neither of them do ProRes internally. If you have a computer that's more powerful and you prefer Canon colors, that camera actually might be a better fit. In my opinion, the Fuji X-H2S is this really unique package where it's a mirrorless camera but also a cinema camera. However, if you don't need all these ProRes and all these fancy video features, you can also look into the Fuji X-T5, which just came out. It does have a much higher resolution sensor, which is 40 megapixels, but it's still an X-Trans sensor. And the only thing you're really missing out on in terms of video features is the fact that it does not have ProRes internally, but that camera does have the ability to shoot 8K video. So let me know in the comments down below what camera you guys currently have and what cameras you guys are thinking of getting and what you guys think of the Fuji X-H2S. I'm probably going to be getting mine mid-December and I'll probably be making a lot more videos on it. But until then, I'd love to hear from you guys. And if you guys want to pick up the Fuji X-H2S or any of the other cameras I mentioned in this video, make sure to check out the links down below for the best pricing and the most up-to-date pricing. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.